Interesting weekend in the NFL. You know, obviously you got some games that are going to be more exciting than others. And one that I am really looking forward to is Miami at Philadelphia. I think that's going to be a huge game for both of these teams. Now, look, each team will be fine, right? Whichever team loses will be fine. They're both 5-1. They're both going to make the playoffs. But, Rob, for Miami, the teams they've beaten are combined 5-24. I said 5-18 yesterday. I was wrong. It's actually 5-24. It's even worse. And then the one time they stepped up in pedigree and played an elite team, Buffalo, they got shellacked by 28 points. I don't think Miami's fugazi, but if they get destroyed by Philadelphia, then you have to wonder, like, are they more style than substance? On the other hand, Philadelphia coming off a bad loss to the Jets. They haven't really played well all season. Jalen Hurts not having as good of a year as last year. Two new coordinators on each side of the ball. Like, and they're at home. I think it's big for them. They need to win this. And Rob, here's the other thing with Philadelphia. I don't know if you've seen this. Their schedule is about to get ridiculous. Not tough, not hard, ridiculous. All right, so they got Washington after the Miami. Washington is not a great team, but it is a division rival, and they beat Philadelphia last year with Jalen Hurts playing. Then they got Dallas, Kansas City, Buffalo, San Francisco, Dallas, Seattle.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like this, they need to get this win. They need to stack up wins because they're not going. I can't imagine they go through that gauntlet undefeated. If they can go through it with just one or two losses, they should be overjoyed. So the big game. But here's what I want to ask you, Rob, because these are two young quarterbacks and obviously connected, University of Alabama, both of them. Tua took Jalen's job, and Jalen ended up going and finishing at Oklahoma. So let me ask you, both have had their moments. Jalen, obviously, fantastic last year. This year, okay, but not what he was last year. Tua had injury issues, but having a great year, and right now the MVP frontrunner. So I would like to ask you this. Which quarterback would you rather have? If you were running a team, which quarterback would you rather have, Tua or Hurts?
I'm going to take Tua, and only for one reason. Jalen Hurts had he not been injured, probably would have been an MVP season, Chris, last year.
Maybe.
Yeah, but if he wasn't injured, because he was off to it. He played well, and he had an unbelievable Super Bowl.
He didn't throw a ton of touchdowns, but he was efficient,
right.
And he ran for a bunch, too.
And he finished second to Mahomes, last year in the MVP. So I just think that he was on his way or at least had a great shot at it. And I don't know. I just look at him now, Chris, and it's not off of the first 5 or 6 games. I don't think he could play better than he played last year. I think that until I see that again or more than once or twice, will I believe that that's who he is. I'm not. Wow. I'm not convinced of that.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not. I don't think that he took that step and now this is what he's going to get every year. That was a phenomenal year out of nowhere, so to speak. And I'm giving credit. I'm not saying he could play. Obviously, played at Alabama. You know what I mean. I'm not trying to.
Right.
I'm just saying. Right. I'm just saying. I need to see that again. And then this year, already he has more interceptions this year than, of course, last year. He has 7 already. We're only, 6 games into the year. He had only 7 last year.
6 last year.
6 last year, 7 this year.
In 15 games.
He has his lowest passer rating since his rookie year. So he dropped off there. And on pace for a career high in sacks as well. So he's what he was able to do the last year. It doesn't seem like it's working so far. That doesn't mean that it can't work, but it's not working so far. Tua, I think, Chris, still has an upside. I don't know if we've got the finished product with Tua. Last year, the injuries kind of derailed him. We did see some big time moments. This year, I don't worry about the schedule as much as him. What I do like, Chris, is that team and offense doesn't play down to the competition. that if they're a bad team, they throttle you. They beat you like they're supposed to.
Right.
I love to see that. Not like, oh, well, they're just skating by and they barely beat this bad team. No, bad teams coming to town, guess what? They're going to trash them and do what they're supposed to. And that 70-point game, flukish, whatever you want to call it, it tells you kind of what he's capable of. And then I go back to the last year, Chris, we saw that game in Baltimore. Remember that big comeback? And there was one other game I just cannot remember. But he had 2 games for the ages where he brought them back, was composed, and played well. I still think there's another side or another level for him. And maybe that level is just consistency and playing a full year or whatever. But I think Tua, I would take Tua.
Yeah, I would go with Hurts. And like you, I like them both. I'm not ripping Tua. I'd be happy to have him, but I would go with Hurts. And my main reason, Rob, and you can't throw this out, and I'm surprised you didn't even mention it, is the injuries, the health. With Hurts, so far, that hasn't even been a question. With Tua, that's the biggest question, especially when he's got that talent around him. The biggest question is he going to stay healthy? He was injured in college, and he's been injured in the NFL. So that's a big thing for me. I do think that both of them can grow. And I think Jalen's got just as much room to grow as Tua because Jalen's still far from a finished product as a passer. And I think because of his character, because of his work ethic, and Tua's high character, high work ethic as well. But Jalen, Rob, we saw it, and you've mentioned it before. We've had people tell us in Philadelphia early in his career, second year, I love the kid. He's a leader. He's got all the intangibles. He just can't throw.
Right. We're not sure he's good enough to throw to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. That's what people were saying.
And then last year he threw it great. Threw for 3,700 yards, threw for 22 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions, as you said, over 101 passer rating. So I do think he will work on it consistently enough to even improve as a passer. And I think I was surprised you said you don't think he can have a better year than last year. Like I said, he only threw 22 touchdowns last year. So I think he can definitely improve on that.
But he had 35 total with the running touchdowns. I mean, that's a lot of touchdowns.
He's going to get a lot just because of at the goal line. He's obviously a big, strong guy.
He had 5,500.
He's going to get a lot of touchdowns running at the goal line. But even 35 touchdowns, I think he can get that again. When you combine them, running and passing, I definitely think he can play at that level, a few times in his career. And the interesting thing this year, Rob, he is throwing it more. And he does also have a new offensive coordinator. So that's an adjustment. But last year only threw it about 30 times a game. This year, 35 a game. So maybe that's too much right now, or, maybe he's going to be a guy that doesn't throw it as much. But, I would rather have Hurts, like I said, because he's more, durable, and I think he's got a lot of room to grow. And Tua does as well. And look, they both have great talent around them.
No doubt.
A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are a fantastic duo. Dallas Goedert, they got a run game. Miami's got a great, obviously supporting cast, if you can even call it that, with Tyreek Hill and company. I think Mike McDaniel is a superior play caller to what they have in Philadelphia, particularly now that Shane Steichen is gone. But, I would go with Tua, or with Hurts. You would go with Tua.
Let me give you this, too, real quick. Last year, even with the injury, Chris, Tua had the 25 passing touchdowns, 8 interceptions. That was in 12 and a half games. So this year is better, but it's not a huge jump from what he was doing. You know what I mean? Like, this is like he was doing this kind of stuff numbers-wise last year when he got hurt. So it's not like oh, wow, look at what Tua's doing. How is he doing this? And he has never done this before. He's kind of on pace of what he has done last year. So, yeah.
I think Tua, to me, and look, again, I think he's the MVP right now. But he's only had like 3 great games this year. I mean, the Chargers, where they won by 2, he had 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 466 yards, obviously a great game. Next game against New England, that's a bad team, Rob, that they only beat by a touchdown. 1 touchdown, 1 pick. The next game, great against Denver, that's when they scored 70. 309 yards, 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, you're going to get people's attention with that.
They obviously got housed by Buffalo. He had 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Giants, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And then Carolina, 3 touchdowns, no picks. So he's really, been a tad up and down and been a little, had the 3 great games. But he also, Rob, did see a huge bump in his stats and production with Tyreek Hill. And as good as A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are, they ain't Tyreek Hill. He's throwing for 90 more yards a game, 2.5 more yards per attempt, far more touchdowns and fewer interceptions, and his passer rating is up 20 points since Tyreek Hill's been there.
You better have those numbers with that guy, no doubt about it.
But Rob G, where are you at on this? Which one would you rather have as your quarterback, and why?
You know what sucks is that you guys both made really good points, and I don't want to be a guy who sits on the fence.
No, we're not going to accept that. Yep, we need you to pick.
So if you look at it this way, last year, to you guys' point, Jalen Hurts was the man. Easily could have won MVP. This year, it looks like Tua was the guy. He could easily win MVP. And so when you compare their 2 seasons combined, last year and this year with both of them, they're like split down the middle on who's leading which category. So it really depends on what you think or what you prefer. And I kind of got to side with Rob that I don't know if Jalen Hurts, that season was so magical last year. And it could be something as simple as he lost his coordinator this year. He's kind of playing catch up. The Eagles haven't really hit their stride yet. But I don't know if this is even the peak of Tua with that offense and that system and those players. I wouldn't be surprised if he had like another record-breaking season given the weaponry he has and his fit in that system. So I would go with Jalen.
But you talked a lot about his weaponry.
But the same thing is Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is in a system in Philadelphia.
Not as good as that one.
But it's a system. It fits what he does.
Everybody's in a system.
Right. And
but I'm asking you, which individual quarterback would you want? Not in a particular. If Tyreek Hill's not there.
Sure. So if I were to take both of them and move them to a different team, just whatever, which quarterback would I'd rather go with Tua because I think it's easier to build around him and his skill set. But they're both awesome. That's why it kind of sucks that you're having to pick between
it's
one.
It's splitting hairs. They're both tremendous.
They're really good. And it lets you know that the NFL is in good hands when you have young quarterbacks like this, that one guy could have won MVP that last year, one guy could win it this year, and you're trying to argue which one's better.
Well, I'll say this about Jalen, because some people, Nick Wright on First Things First has brought up, he doesn't get nearly the criticism that Dak Prescott gets, and he's had one great year. What has he done? Kind of that Dak.
Oh, that's not.
Obviously, he's gotten the team to a Super Bowl.
But before this, Chris, before last year, he wasn't getting ripped.
No, he's getting ripped. But I think this is a big thing. Jalen, and for that matter, Hurts. Tua, but just because he's been hurt so much, they're still viewed as young quarterbacks. And so Jalen, look, 4 years from now, if Jalen hasn't gotten back to the Super Bowl, if his play hasn't improved, he will be getting ripped, right? Like Dak, the problem with Dak is he's a veteran. When he was younger, Rob, you get that leeway when you're younger because we understand you are improving. You are going to grow. You're going to have growing pains. And so I think baked into, we actually both mentioned it, baked into the Tua prognosis or evaluation, baked into the Jalen evaluation is improvement, right? We think they both can improve. Nobody's going to bake that into a Dak Prescott evaluation. And so I think that's a big difference where the quarterback is in their career.